Okay, so now we are open the session for questions. So I wonder if somebody of you have a question to the speakers today. Well, in that case, we have prepared a couple of questions for the speakers. Indeed, they are already prepared for the questions. So one of the questions that we see as community is, what future developments or innovations do you foresee in data management that could significantly advance bioimaging research in Latin America? So these questions are focused to push forward the growing of Latin American bioimaging. The button.
Hola. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for me, it's probably training. At least what I tried to summarize in my talk is that we have resolved the major technical issues. There might some be left, but the major points are solved. So I was also astonished that I haven't been focused on what you are lifting. So it's training, it's information and more exchange of information and community building. So my point would be that training, standard programs that we can originate so that we don't have to repeat all the basic courses over and over and over. Yeah, and after Corona, really get together again with higher frequency, although this rises our carbon track.
So I think that I agree with you on the training front, for sure. I think in the United States and Canada and Mexico, we still have a ways to go in North America on the infrastructure side of things. I think what you have going in Chile is envious from many with the high-speed internet connectivity that you have. I think maybe we need to look a little bit at what the astronomy community has done, because as you say, they're like the golden child from the funder standpoint in many respects. So the infrastructure that they have in place has really empowered that community to do the sort of sharing of data that I think would be something we would all want to aspire to at the end of the day. So I think that I'd like to see greater investment on the infrastructure side, but that also requires work on our parts from the sort of image metadata and carrying that data forward with the images so that people could then feel confident reusing them for the purposes that they want to reuse them for. So that provenance piece is an important piece. So.
Thank you. I want to reconnect with what the previous speaker said, Jessica Formoso. There are some aspects about it, for example, the way to do data management, which are linked to technology. And of course, the type of infrastructure might be very similar to what exists in other country, other continent. But also, I think that the type of data analysis should be connected strongly with what are the societal issue, the societal problem of the different country. And perhaps you have to, as a Latin America bioimaging, you have to fight in order to bring your vision into what is important and what are the type of scientific problem that have to be faced. For example, the same fact of having a pathogen that is a real problem in some country might not be seen as a real problem in the rest of the world. So you have to bring in your own vision and you have to influence how these infrastructure are developed.
Okay, so I will take one of the other questions that we have formulated for you. And this question will be more connected to the organizations that are not in South America. So I'm thinking in Bioimaging North America and GloBIAS, which is, and this question is related of how you can really take advantage of the initiatives that they are driving right now. So the question is, can you provide examples of successful collaborations or partnerships that you have enhanced your initiative impact on data management?
Yeah, I start again. I have a very positive example from the field of medical informatics, where we set up an international master program with universities in Heidelberg and Heilbronn. And we focused that from the beginning to the exchange of students, so that students could do their thesis in Latin America, or Latin American students go out and do their thesis in Europe, in Germany in that case. So this was really successful because there was a bi-directional transfer of brains, and also the European students that finished their thesis in collaboration and in Latin America were all happy with their experience, because we are normally nice to strangers, I would say. We treat them well, and they could learn a lot here also. So when I saw this talk, I think you mentioned that, or the virtual presenter, that Latin American projects should be led by Latin Americans, true, probably, but also that exchange of students in two directions is very helpful to teach good practices from abroad, and students can do a much better work to put that to the next generation than I can do because of age and other things. So I think the focus again on exchange and real exchange, because that's some things one way sometimes, or most of the times, would be my main point.
So again, I'm not sure that really North America is a great example for things that could be going on in Latin America, because, as I say, you're doing many of the things better in some respects. But there is a pilot project at the moment going on in Canada with an AMERA database that some of the BINA QC quality control and data management working group are involved with. And that is a project that's funded temporarily by a Canadian funding agency to essentially provide a repository for Canadian researchers to deposit their image data. And they're working with folks over in Europe to try and essentially work on what the appropriate metadatas are and so on, so that that community can share. So it's nothing like what you have going, I don't think, in Chile right now, but it is something that this Canadian group is starting to try and work on being able to share within Canada. So as I say, there's not much sharing going on that I'm aware of on that scale, unfortunately. Just, small within communities and institutions at the moment. But this pilot in Canada is a good example of something that I think, if it takes off, it's a nice pilot for others to follow.
Yeah, thank you. My reply will include more the aspect of data analysis rather than management. I'm just bringing an example. It was not an initiative organized by us, but for example, I knew Adan Guerrero and his group during one of the hackathon organized by CZI to work on the software Napari. And in that occasion, I just ended up randomly in a working group, but this meant that we started many years collaboration. So our goal as GloBIAS is try to also provide this type of link, and we think that the existence of the database, whether it is for the bioimage analysis trainer or for the bioimage analyst, can just help people like me to be reachable by other scientists, other researchers that they need a specific expertise. So perhaps the goal is just to make yourself known outside there, and maybe the first person that will contact you is just another person from your own city. But because there is no way for this person to know you, there is an expert locally, things like this, like the database, in our opinion, are very important.
So I wonder if somebody has a question to raise? Okay, here it goes, one question from Adan Guerrero, okay? Which is, here I'm seeing 3 different ways of organizing a society for bioimage analysis. And with future perspectives or current perspectives of how you handle the administrative part of the initiative. For example, in the case of the initiative that is actually running in Chile, there is a cost for the usage of the service, which impose a paywall for access to the infrastructure. In the case of Globias, you are thinking in a project in which in the future you will sustain the initiative through the fees, which might impose a paywall for the students or for the people that are eager to really take advantage of that. In the case of BINA, there is currently no paywall, but we don't know what is going to be in the future when we don't have funding, and that is something that we have to deal with as every organization that we are creating. Most of the societies in the world need funding to keep going on. So I wonder, what do you think that are the advantages, the disadvantages, and the challenges that we are about to face? Thank you.
I will start. So in our case, for example, the idea of membership fees, or in general paying fees for going to a training school, we try when we organize to keep the cost as low as possible, but in some cases you still have to ask for this fee to participant. Now, in these 2 years, in order to found the Scientific Society, we are generously supported by Chan Zuckerberg initiative, but the goal is to have an organism, something that lives by itself, is supported by community. And unfortunately, some of the funds have to come by the payment of a fees, for how I see it. But what we can do is just leave the creation of this organization available as open science. It means, for example, if we organize a training school, we can put all the training materials online, we can license them as a CC BY. We can make sure that what is the product of our work is not just benefiting the people that are paying for that specific event, but this type of materials and resources, they can be used from other people and maybe from other trainers in order to organize their own training school.
Yeah, excellent question. Yeah, if you want to organize, first of all, if you want to organize value, it has a cost. We all know. In Latin America in general, funding for science is not really increasing. I think I don't know any example of an increasing science budget in any Latin American country. So the trade-off for all the scientists is basically, do I spend the money I have for a society or for a student that I have to pay, or some ingredient? So this is hard. But maybe what have worked well in my environment is, okay, if value has to be created and you need to invest. So it could be a good idea to start sponsoring a society to get the pressure off at the beginning, but also ask for a plan in 3, 5, 6 years to be sustainable, and put successively pressure on the system, but after the system exists. No? So initial financing from outside, and then with a strategy to be evolved and implemented to self-financing over the years. No? Because finally I also think that the money spent on that in total is not so huge in relation to the value, but the initial cost needs to be absorbed because it's additional noise.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a challenge. You want to be open and inclusive, but the minute you put a membership fee down, then you no longer are being open and inclusive. But there are societies that have managed this with a membership model where, you know, they have a model. It's a tiered model depending on what career level you're at. And then if you can present to the organization that you really can't afford the membership, then they have ways of making it feasible for you to still be a part of that community. I know that ASCB has a sort of tiered system like that. And at least in the United States, the benefit for having a membership fee versus, say, donation is that you can charge to your federal grants a membership fee. You cannot charge a donation. So there's some merit to the idea of a membership fee if it's structured appropriately. And I agree that I think that it's wonderful to get a small organization up and running. I would argue it takes a little longer than 5 to 10 years, because when you look at some of the societies that have been around, like the Royal Microscopical Society or ASCB, or some of the big ones that are successful, they've been around a while. I think Microscopical Society has been around for 100 years or something. So, you know, I think that obviously you don't keep supporting during that time frame, but it is a trade-off to slowly wean off of a support system, just like you do your own children, you know. So I think that there is definitely a model there that should work. It's worked for other associations. So it's a question really of reaching out to some of those associations if you haven't already and finding out how their model works. It's definitely not easy to go from sort of being sheltered by having that support to suddenly being on your own, where you have to have, you know, we all recognize the need for human resources support, legal support. These are things that small not-for-profits really struggle with at the beginning. So sort of being sheltered initially at the beginning with that until you get your feet under you is really important. And then maybe that membership model does kick in to start helping subsidize, if you like, until eventually you get weaned off to being fully supported by the community that you serve.
So I just made that question because self-sustainability is a huge issue that we are facing all the time. And that is something that we have always to deal when we are interacting with society, when we are interacting with government, and they always ask you, you need to go for the self-sustainability, but at which cost? Okay, and Stefan says something which I believe is very important: communicate value, because if we manage to understand the value, we have also to need to manage to communicate that value to reach that self-sustainability. And that is something that CCI is trying to pursue us, which is not go and look for funding in a specific source. You need to look for support in your community, in your local government, in your own environment, because you might find it there. So thank you for sharing this, and with this way of thinking, look, you have these people here that is open to grow an ecosystem which is very valuable for us, which is now that we have the data, what we'll do with that, how much value we can get out of that data. Thank you so much.
Thank you.